Good morning, and welcome to the 2021 Housing Rehabilitation Application Workshop. I am Cozzard, the Housing Rehabilitation Program Manager. Let's get started. Section 1 and 2 are highlights for the CDBG housing grants. The funding availability this year is $7 million. That is up about $250,000 from the previous year. The grant ceiling is $550,000. Of course, these applications are all competitive, and the applications this year are due on Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021 by 5 p.m. The funding availability continued is a minimum of a $250,000 grant will be accepted, nothing less, and applications for less than this minimum grant amount will not be accepted. And now we'll talk about the method of distribution. Application limitation. Units of local government may apply for one grant per competitive program year. Applicants that received a grant in the previous year must demonstrate reasonable progress by the time the application is reviewed, or it will not be considered. Eligible applicants. Only units of local government may apply for this funding. Entitlement communities or counties that receive their direct appropriation of CDBG funds from HUD are not eligible to apply, and this can be found under Section 1C. Application materials. All original application forms and materials as shown in the guidebook must be utilized, and I cannot stress this enough. Applications will be designated do not fund for using self-created forms, adding to or removing any language in those forms, forged, copied, taped, pasted, or any alterations to signatures or dates. All letters, notices, resolutions, agreements, or other communication provided by the unit of local government must be of the exact verbiage contained in the guidebook and be on government letterhead. Now we'll move on to requirements and disclaimers. Costs previously incurred on or for an application preparation are not reimbursable. Continued requirements and disclaimers. Grant agreements are good for 24 months. Again, requirements and disclaimers. Other than the administration and inspection exempt activity form included in the application, no environmental review activities can take place until the applicant has received the Notice of State Award finalist. That would be the NOSAF. So do not contact state agencies prior to receiving your NOSAF, and do not contact the HUD program and environmental staff. State and federal compliance. 2 CFR 200 and GATA, which is the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, are two of the federal compliance components that we must follow. Citizen participation. I kind of want to stress this because we continue to receive applications with public notice issues. You must have a notarized certificate of publication included in the applications. No emails will be accepted. And when I say no emails, I mean we will not accept an email from the paper or wherever you choose to publish your notice in place of a notarized certificate of publication. It must be a notarized certificate of publication. Also, a step-by-step process is spelled out in the guidebook. And remember to count your days on your publication. Do not count the date of publication. count 7 days after the date of publication. This is a federal requirement, so please pay attention to that as we continue to get applications with these issues. Use an experienced writer or administrator. All application writers and grant administrators must have administered an Illinois CDBG grant within the last 2 years or have attended the 2020 Grant Administrators Workshop, as well as the 2021 Application Workshop. Use an environmental specialist. All grantees must use an experienced environmental specialist who has completed at least one Illinois CDBG environmental review since January 1, 2016, or has successfully completed a DCEO environmental training on July 18, 2018.
Hello, this is Jeff, and I'll be talking about the guidebook section 4 of housing rehab. The eligible activities are rehabilitation for low to moderate income households, single family owner occupied homes in the project area. Also activity delivery. Administration services are a $30,000 flat fee. Rehabilitation administration, which is the inspection services on a graduated scale depending on how many homes will be completed. And the scale is in the guidebook. Ineligible activities would be the construction of government buildings, government expenses, costs of operating and maintaining public facilities, servicing or refinancing of existing debt, or conflicts of interest. Eligibility thresholds: 100% of LMI direct benefit, minimum scope of work, which is 8 homes, and the demonstration of adequate programmatic policies and procedures. Narrative inclusions need to be the letter of transmittal, a project summary, the housing project design, project maps and FEMA map, commitment letters and resolution, and the cost estimates for the housing rehab work. Narrative inclusions continued would be the housing project design, application process and prioritization, rehabilitation priorities, all codes and standards, promotion and solicitation, activity delivery, procurement, which is section 4 in the attachments, and firm letters of commitment and resolution. Okay, and now we're going to look at the application review, evaluation, and award process. The 100% low to moderate income, and as Kara covered earlier, this must include the HUD LMI maps, and the link is attached. Evaluation per section 4, part G of the guidebook. Project readiness score will decide ties, and you can apply every year.
And continuing on with the application ranking criteria, the application is worth 100 points total. The project need is worth 20 points. The project impact is worth 20 points. The coordination of resources is 30 points, and project readiness is 30 points. We'll start with ranking criteria for project need, which is worth 20 points. The project need score will be based on a total percent of LMI households in the project area. That percent can be obtained through census block data or combined census block data. Applications that do not provide a defined project area that meets criterion will receive 0 points. You must include the HUD map of proposed project area. This is kind of a concern as well with past applications. We've been seeing a lot of application come in where there is no HUD map in the application proving your LMI for that particular city or community. So please be aware of this and make this a priority this year where your HUD LMI map is actually in the application. So the project need 20 points are broken down on a point system laid out before you, which is the total number of LMI households. And you can see you can either get 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, or 20 points out of 20 on project need, and that's based on that HUD LMI map that comes in the application. Project impact, which is worth 20 points. In order to document an achievable impact in the project area, a minimum number of completed housing needs surveys must be submitted with the application. All submitted surveys must document eligible households, LMI single-family owner-occupied homes in need of rehab. The minimum number of eligible surveys to be submitted will be 2 times the proposed project scope of work, but we strongly suggest 3 times the proposed scope of work. So an example is, if you're doing 8 homes, you can have a minimum of 16 surveys submitted, but we would like to see 24 homes surveyed and surveys submitted. So the next slide, as you can see, is that project impact of 20 points is broken down to this ratio. 3-to-1 surveys to scope of work, you can get the full 20 points. 2-to-1 survey to scope of work is 10 points. And less than 2-to-1 surveys to scope of work, you will receive 0 points. And of course, we rarely see that, only on surveys that have been spoiled. I highly suggest doing the 3-to-1 to get and achieve the full 20 points on the project impact. The next ranking criteria we will look at is coordination of resources, which is broken down into 2 areas. The first area is the additional funding resources. This is basically if the community wants to add money to the project, they could receive up to 10 points. So if they receive 20,000 or more, include 20,000 or more in the project, they could receive 10 points, and so forth, as you can see by the chart. Less than 5,000 though, you will receive 0 points. The second part of coordination of resources is worth 20 points, and this is the project administration agency average percent drawdown. So whoever you have administering your past housing grants, you can receive up to 20 points if they are 80% or more drawn on those current housing grants. And then you can see by the breakdown of the percentages how those points do go down. Less than 20% drawn, you will receive 0 points. The next ranking criteria is project readiness, which is 30 points. We will need to see letters from general contractors, and those letters from lead licensed general contractors will be worth 2 points each for a total of 10 points, or you can send letters from non-lead licensed general contractors where they will receive 1 point each. We highly suggest letters from lead licensed general contractors. Owner interest. We will look at each eligible survey in the project area that attended the public hearing. So one person from that eligible income household should be attending the public hearing to receive 0.5 points for a total of 5 points max here. Next in the ranking criteria is your lead licensed housing inspector and assessor. We really want to see that you guys have, at the time of application, a lead licensed housing inspector and assessor where you receive the maximum 5 points here. Although we do understand that sometimes at time of application, a lot of you do not have that. So if you do not have an IDPH lead licensed inspector and assessor, you will receive 2.5 points. Next, we want to see 3 cost estimates. We like to see a minimum, a moderate, and a maximum house cost estimate with an exterior photo included, and you would receive 5 points here. We also look at your application and outreach process, which is a maximum of 2.5 points. And basically, this just tells us that you guys are prepared to take applications if you are funded. And last, we want to see a project map showing all LMI surveyed homes. And this is also 2.5 points. So that all makes up the 30 points for this ranking criteria.
Okay, now we can talk about application forms. Applicants are required to use the forms contained in the application guidebook. Documents that deviate from the provided forms or are not completed fully will not be accepted. And the application will be do not fund. Application forms. The CDBG Housing Rehabilitation Submission Checklist and Table of Contents. You need the letter of transmittal for housing. Double check your amounts. The CDBG Applicant Project Information, Housing Rehab Component, and again look at those amounts. Housing Rehabilitation Fact Sheet. The Working Cost Estimate. List of previous housing rehabilitation grants, the Minority Benefit Affirmative Housing Statement, Income Survey, Housing Needs Survey, the Council of Resolution, if applicable, Public Hearing Notice documentation, Local Government Certifications, please fill out completely, the Environmental Review for activity that is exempt, and the HUD Exchange LMI map. Okay, documentation, certifications, and resolutions. Council Resolution of Support, Council Resolution committing local funds, the Sample Public Hearing Notice, Local Government Certifications, Applicant Grantee Recipient Disclosure Certification, and Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreement. And as you've done before, all the submission information which is on this slide, the only thing that has changed this year is that we do request 2 full applications. And finally, submit the original, including all of the following: all application materials, the Section 4, Part 1 forms, and documentation. Please clearly label the original and the copy. And note that all application materials requiring a signature from the applicant must be signed by the chief elected official. Okay, that concludes our presentation. We want to thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions for Kara, myself, or Wendy, we can take those now.